Imagine your country has 211% inflation, the worst in the world. Every time you go to the grocery store, prices are higher. Your salary becomes worthless overnight. 40% of your neighbors live in poverty. Then a guy shows up at campaign rallies wielding a chainsaw, literally a gas-powered chainsaw, revving it on stage, screaming about destroying the central bank, blowing it up, he yells. And he doesn't just talk. He names his economics theory after that chainsaw economics. He promises to cut government spending by 30%, fire thousands of bureaucrats, eliminate half the ministries, no gradual reform. Shock therapy, without anesthesia. His words, not mine. Every expert says he'll fail. The Washington Post calls his plan disastrous. The BBC predicts he'll be no exception to Argentina's long line of failed presidents. And then something impossible happens. He wins, by a landslide, 56% of the vote. December 2023, Javier Milei becomes president of Argentina, the anarcho-capitalist with the chainsaw, the libertarian economist who wants to abolish the central bank. This is the story of what happened next, how 1 year of chainsaw economics changed everything, how Argentina went from having the world's highest inflation to posting a budget surplus for the first time in 123 years, how poverty jumped to 57%, then crashed to 31%, the lowest since 2018, how the economy grew 7.6% in a single quarter, the fastest in 2 decades, how a guy with a chainsaw proved everyone wrong. Buckle up. This is Argentina's economic shock therapy, the wildest experiment in modern economics. The crisis, December 2023, total disaster, 211% annual inflation, prices doubling every year. If you had 100 pesos in January, by December they'd buy you less than half. But it gets worse. The official exchange rate was a joke. The government said $1 number 400 pesos. The actual street rate? 800 pesos per dollar. The central bank was literally lying about what money was worth. Why? Because they were printing money like crazy to pay for government spending. The fiscal deficit was out of control. The government spent way more than it collected in taxes, so they just printed more pesos, which created more inflation, which made the deficit worse, which required more printing. The death spiral was in full effect, and this wasn't new. Argentina has been doing this dance for decades. The Peronists, the political establishment, have run this playbook over and over, spend big on subsidies, print money to cover it, blame inflation on speculators and the rich. By 2023, Argentina had defaulted on its debt 9 times since independence, more than any other country in modern history. The IMF had given Argentina a $57 billion bailout in 2018, the largest in IMF history. By 2023, Argentina couldn't even make the payments. The central bank had negative net reserves, not zero, negative. They owed more dollars than they had. But somehow they still controlled the currency, still subsidized energy and transportation to the point where a bus ticket in Buenos Aires cost 7 cents. Unsustainable doesn't even begin to describe it. 40% poverty rate before Milei took office. Wages falling month after month. Real purchasing power down 20% in 2023 alone. A retiree who'd saved their whole life, their pension was worthless. Argentines were eating less beef than ever because they couldn't afford it. And Argentina is one of the world's biggest beef producers. This is the Argentina that Javier Milei inherited, a country that had tried everything. Nothing worked. The chainsaw candidate. Javier Milei wasn't a politician. He was an economist, a TV pundit, a guy who spent the 2010s appearing on talk shows, screaming about how the government was destroying Argentina. He was loud, dramatic, wild hair and wilder ideas. He called himself an anarcho-capitalist. He wanted to abolish the central bank, replace the peso with the US dollar, privatize everything, and he had a prop, a chainsaw, a literal gas-powered chainsaw. He'd bring it to rallies, rev it up. This, he'd say, is what I'm going to do to government spending. The chainsaw became his symbol. His supporters would bring their own chainsaws to rallies, hold them up. The message was clear: cut everything. He proposed cutting government spending by 30% immediately. Day 1, shock, eliminate ministries, fire bureaucrats, end subsidies for energy, transportation, fuel, all of it. He called it shock therapy without anesthesia. Critics called him crazy, dangerous. Economists warned that his plans would cause a depression. mass unemployment, even more poverty. The Washington Post wrote that he was pushing a disastrous old agenda, but the people didn't care what the experts said. Because the experts had been wrong before, the responsible politicians had failed, the IMF had failed, the Peronists had failed. So why not try something radical? In November 2023, Milei won the election, 56% of the vote, a landslide. Day 1, the shock, December 10, 2023, Inauguration Day. Milei takes office, and immediately the chainsaw comes out. First move, devalue the peso by 54% overnight. The official rate goes from 400 to 800 pesos per dollar. Prices explode. In December 2023 alone, monthly inflation hits 25.5%, the highest in decades. People panic. But Milei doesn't stop. He signs 13 decrees on day 1, cuts the number of ministries from 18 to 9, eliminates the Ministry of Culture, he'd called it the Ministry of Indoctrination, eliminates health, labor, social development, education, all merged into 2 mega-ministries. He fires 5,000 public sector employees in the first week. Economy Minister Luis Caputo announces the plan. End fuel subsidies. Gas prices increase 140% in 2 months. End energy subsidies. Electricity bills skyrocket. End transportation subsidies. That 7-cent bus ticket, now 70 cents, 10 times higher. Freeze public sector wages. Freeze pensions. Stop virtually all public infrastructure projects. Cut transfers to provincial governments by 93.8%, cut subsidies by 83.9%, cut public investment by 73.5%, fire thousands more bureaucrats. By June 2025, 52,309 public employees fired. The Ministry of Economy, 69,297 employees to 58,100. Aerolíneas Argentinas fires 1,734 workers. State Advertising Agency, 790 to 166 employees. The cuts are savage, indiscriminate, exactly what Milei promised. The results? Immediate pain. The economy contracts. GDP falls 3.5% in 2024. Manufacturing drops 9.4%. Industrial activity collapses. Retail sales fall 28.5% in the first 2 months. Poverty explodes. From 41.7% in December 2023 to 52.9% in January 2024, then keeps climbing, peaks at 57.4%, the highest jump in poverty in 2 decades. People are suffering. Real wages fall. Beef consumption falls from 73 kilograms per person per year to 48.5 kilo, the lowest in history. But Milei doesn't blink. The problem is not poverty, he repeats. The problem is the deficit, and he's achieving his goal. In January 2024, Argentina posts a budget surplus, the first in over a decade. For the first time in 123 years, Argentina has exited the fiscal deficit. Every single month in 2024, surplus. Unprecedented. But the human cost is staggering. 57% poverty is catastrophic. An economy contracting 3.5% is a recession. The critics line up, this is insane. Milei is destroying Argentina. The deep chainsaw. By March 2024, Milei announces the deep chainsaw. The first round wasn't enough. He fires 2,000 more workers from the Ministry of Human Capital, the Childhood, Adolescence and Family Secretariat, key welfare programs gets gutted. Deregulation becomes the focus. Milei creates a Ministry of Deregulation. The goal, eliminate 1 to 5 regulations per day, every single day. Labor laws get loosened. Rent control gets abolished. In late 2024, Milei rips up Argentina's rent control law. After Milei eliminates the law, the results are immediate. In Buenos Aires, the supply of rental housing jumps 195%. Listings go from 5,500 to 15,300. Median asking rent falls 10%. More supply, lower prices. The market works. But other industries suffer. 1 to 200 industrial establishments close in 2024. 4,000 scientists fired from CONICET. Public universities see budgets cut 35% in real terms. Scholars emigrate, brain drain. Milei calls university students privileged. His approval rating among the richest 20%, 59%. Among the poorest 20%, 39%. The gap is staggering. No other country has seen such unequal popularity for a new leader. But inflation, it's falling. Monthly inflation, which hit 25.5% in December 2023, drops throughout 2024. By September, it's 2.1%. By January 2025, 2.2%, the lowest in 5 years. Annual inflation from 300% peak to 39.4% by July 2025, still high, but falling. The turnaround, April 2025. Something changes. The economy stops contracting. It starts growing fast. Q2 2025. GDP grows 7.7% year over year, the fastest in 2 decades. Retail sales surge, manufacturing rebounds. The economy is roaring back. The IMF had predicted stagnation. They were wrong. JP Morgan now calls Argentina one of the highest growth markets in Latin America. What happened? By mid-2025, monthly inflation is 1.5%, the lowest in 5 years. And poverty? It's falling. From 57.4% at peak, it drops to 31.7% in Q1 2025, the lowest since 2018. In 18 months, poverty drops 26 percentage points, the most dramatic reduction in Argentine history. Real wages start recovering. In dollar terms, average wages jump to $990 per month. The peso has strengthened by 44.2% against the dollar. Beef consumption recovers to 50 kilos per person. The budget surplus continues. Every month, Argentina paid off $4.3 billion in debt in 2024. Investor confidence soars. Bond prices jump. The country risk index falls from 2,000 to 750. The stock market explodes. The Merval index soars 140% in 2024. Argentina signs a free trade deal with the EU. The IMF approves a $20 billion program. The U.S. adds another $20 billion. Gallup polls show 41% of Argentines think the economy is getting better, up from 25% in 2023. Milei's approval rating holds at 49%. October 26, 2025, midterm elections. Milei's party wins big, 41% of the vote, doubles congressional representation. The people have spoken. They want more chainsaw. Milei announces special congressional sessions through December 31st. No Christmas break for lawmakers. The 2026 budget is coming, the smallest in the last 30 years. It's working, against all predictions. The broken promise. But wait, there's a problem. Milei's central campaign promise, dollarization, abolishing the central bank, replacing the peso with the US dollar. He promised this everywhere. "We're going to blow up the central bank," he'd scream. The worst garbage that exists on this earth. Emilio Ocampo, Milei's dollarization expert, had a plan. Swap pesos for dollars. Total timeline, 16 months for full dollarization. But then he won. Between election and inauguration, something changes. His advisors warn him Congress won't support it. Even his own finance minister opposes it. Milei faces a choice: stick to his promise and risk impeachment, or abandon dollarization and focus on what's achievable. He chooses the latter. Ocampo doesn't join the administration. The plan dies. In his inaugural speech, Milei doesn't mention dollarization, not once. Critics call it betrayal. It's not that dollarization wouldn't have been feasible technically, Milei admits, but we inferred that politically, politics was going to play dirty. Instead, Milei implements a crawling peg system. The peso devalues gradually. This creates a problem. Over 2024, inflation runs 117%, but the peso only devalues 30%. The result, the peso becomes overvalued, one of its strongest levels in decades. Why does this matter? Because it makes Argentine exports expensive. It hurts competitiveness. In September-October 2025, there's a run on the currency, capital flight. The U.S. has to intervene to stop the bleeding. Steve Hanke, the economist who dollarized Ecuador, is furious. "This is a fatal mistake," he says. "They'll never get out of the soup by kicking the can down the road with IMF programs. The promise broken. The chainsaw that didn't cut the central bank. Milei's biggest failure. Or smartest compromise? The human cost. Maria, 67, lives in Buenos Aires. Retired teacher. Her pension was frozen in December 2023. Her electricity bill went up 300%. She can't afford both heating and food. Beef once weekly is now a luxury, once a month if lucky. Diego, 28, works for a delivery app. The algorithm his only boss. His pay was cut 15% in February 2024. He works 12-hour days now to make what he used to in 8. His engineering dreams postponed indefinitely. Natalia Barone runs a community kitchen. Before Milei, she fed 50 families. Now, 80. Middle-class families, teachers, office workers, they can't make ends meet anymore. The scientists fired from Conaset. Many have emigrated. Brain drain. Universities are struggling. Professors haven't had a raise since December 2023. Students are protesting in Buenos Aires, but the government isn't listening. Milei's base isn't the poor. His approval among the richest, 20%, 59%. Among the poorest, 39%. For those with capital, the recovery is real. Rental market recovery, deregulated airlines, expanding credit. But for Maria, for Diego, for the 80 families at Natalia's kitchen, the recovery feels distant. They're still struggling, still waiting. The global reaction, December 2024. The world notices Argentina. Donald Trump invites Milei to Mar-a-Lago. Fantastic job, Trump says. Elon Musk pays attention. He's making all the right moves. Vivek Ramaswamy is inspired. We need Milei-style cuts, on steroids. Milei appears at the World Economic Forum, encourages a worldwide push for libertarianism, claims Argentina is a successful example. Germany's FDP invites him. Look what's possible. Bold reforms work, but others push back. Peterson Institute warns about navigating political risks. Harvard's Carmen Reinhart remains skeptical. We've seen this story before. China watches nervously. Brazil's Lula calls Milei problematic, but the collapse isn't happening. And that's making people nervous, because if Milei succeeds, truly succeeds, it validates a model the establishment hates: libertarian economics, radical austerity, chainsaw cuts, no safety net, pure free market. The verdict: did it work? The numbers are stark. Inflation from 211% to 28.31%. Budget from deficit to surplus for first time in 123 years. GDP contracted 3.5%, then grew 7.6%. Now projected 4.5% annually, fastest in Latin America. Poverty peaked at 57%, now at 31 to 38%, lower than 2018. Stock market up 140%. Country risk 2,000 to 750. Trade surplus $18.9 billion record. Political support 49% approval. Midterm victory. These are the facts, indisputable. For supporters, it's vindication, proof that libertarian economics works. For critics, it's complicated. Yes, inflation is down. Yes, growth is back. But at what cost? 57% peak poverty. Thousands fired. Was it worth it? But here's the truth. Milei did something no other Argentine president has done. He actually implemented the reforms he promised. He wielded the chainsaw exactly as advertised, and it worked, mostly. The economy is growing, inflation is falling, poverty is declining. Argentina is no longer a basket case, but challenges remain. The overvalued peso is a risk. Dollarization failure means Argentina can still relapse. Political fragilities persist. International support is conditional. One shock could unravel everything. But for now, against all expectations, the chainsaw is working. Milei is proving the experts wrong. Argentina isn't collapsing. It's growing. The madman might just pull this off. The lessons. What can we learn? Shock therapy can work if you commit fully. Fiscal discipline matters more than anything. Deregulation works when you let markets free. Political will is everything. The human cost is real, and both recovery and suffering can coexist. Promises matter until they don't. Results matter more. International support helps, but the experiment isn't over. 2 years is nothing. Argentina has had brief recoveries before, always followed by relapses. Can this last? History suggests skepticism. One size doesn't fit all. What worked in Argentina might not work elsewhere. The chainsaw is a symbol for everywhere. Big government versus small. Safety nets versus free markets. Gradual reform versus shock therapy. Millions around the world are watching. The final word, December 2025. Where does Argentina go from here? The 2026 budget, smallest in 30 years. More cuts. Dollarization remains on the table. Eventually, Milei says, the overvalued peso remains a risk, but Milei keeps pushing forward. The question is, how long can this last? Argentina's history suggests caution, boom and bust, recovery and relapse. But maybe this time is different. Maybe Milei has broken the cycle, or maybe in a few years it falls apart. We don't know yet. But here's what we do know. For 2 years, a libertarian with a chainsaw did the impossible, cut spending by 30%, fired 52,000 bureaucrats, balanced a budget that hadn't balanced in 123 years, brought inflation from 201% to 28%, grew the economy 7.6% in a quarter. Against every prediction, against every expert, he wielded the chainsaw. And for now at least it's working. Whether it lasts? That's the question. Can you really engineer prosperity? Can you cut your way to growth? Milei is betting yes. Argentina is betting yes. The world is watching, with chainsaws in hand, waiting to see if they should pull the cord. The buildings aren't empty, but the lessons are full. Let's hope Argentina remembers them. Let's hope the world pays attention, because this experiment might just be the future of economics, or its biggest failure. Either way, we'll remember the chainsaw and the madman who wielded it, Javier Milei, Argentina's libertarian president, the man who proved everyone wrong so far.